Okay, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the ALLT 2020 Fall Forum organization team, I would like to welcome you all. The ALLT Fall 2020 Forum is organized in collaboration with Zayed University and the higher colleges of technology. My name is Imad Mahafza, and I will be moderating the session in virtual room 3 until 2 p.m. The speaker will be speaking for 15 to 20 minutes max, followed by 5-minute discussion. You are welcome to write your question in the chat box function during the presentation. As the moderator, I will collate your questions and pose them to the presenter in the last 5 minutes of the session. I will give polite reminder to the speaker of the time remaining after 15 minutes of the talk has passed. I would also like to remind you that our distinguished keynote speakers will bring the forum to a close from 2 p.m. to 3:20 p.m. in virtual room 6. Please be sure to join the keynote session. Without any further ado, please allow me to welcome Mr. Richard Nelson from UK on the delivery session of Reframing Professional Development to be Effective, Efficient, and Global. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and good morning from the UK. I'm Dr. Richard Nelson from Caspia, and I'm going to share some experiences about reframing professional development to be effective, efficient, and global. Caspia has been working with its international higher education partners to explore what makes good professional development and how we can make that accessible and affordable to everybody, to all institutions around the globe. So in this presentation, I want you to think about some key questions. What is the problem with professional development in HE? What does great professional development look like? And what have other organisations done to support their staff development in accessing professional development? So in this session, I'll look at each question in turn. I'll draw your attention to some case studies and demonstrate how universities around the world have attempted to reframe professional development. So I'd like you to have a think for a few seconds, and in a session where we had a poll, you could have a think about what is the key problems with HE professional development from your perspective. Is it too expensive? Is it too difficult to access? Is the main issue competing priorities in increasing workloads? Do you think that HE professional development is not sustainable and is often one size fits all? And what we found from a lot of institutions, the question that's coming back is that professional development within the HE sector is difficult to measure and it's difficult to assess the impact. So think about your own context and think about how HE professional development has issues in your area. Because I'd like to share with you my own experience of professional development in HE through a recent experience I had. You can imagine, as I sat in yet another training session hosted by a learning development department at the University of Leeds in the UK, I felt time slipping away along with my concentration. The trainers in that professional development session were trying their best to transfer that knowledge to myself and the rest of the group. However, I could tell by looking around, looking at the faces of the people within the room, that they had other competing activities in their mind. Their mindset was thinking about things about workload, about the activities they've got to do outside of this training session. And I could also feel that they didn't feel the session was for them. It was too standardized. It was that top-down approach. And when the instructors split us up into smaller groups so we could have a bit of a chat, the chat really moved away from the actual content of the staff development and more towards questions like, what are we here for? How much time is this taken away from my real work? And are we ever going to remember this when we leave the room? And I'd worked closely with the professional development team at University of Leeds, and I'd helped them create online learning material and support academics to develop the digital skills. So I knew that these trainers were really good at their job. I knew that they knew how to get the information and content across, but they just don't have the capacity to be able to create real, effective professional development, especially at scale. And, at the end of it, you may know this already, but the root problem with any academics and professional development is that academics want to feel empowered. They want to feel that they have some control over this professional development. They want to be able to choose the workshops. They want to be able to listen to the guest speakers that interest them from outside of the institution, and they want to go to the conferences and the events. However, this type of professional development is very expensive, and it's difficult to access for some institutions. You know, even the University of Leeds, which was one of the top universities in the world, they've tried to empower their staff to have this sort of staff development, but have found the conference attendance very expensive, and often measuring the impact of that professional development just is not coming back in a way that they can really show the effectiveness of it. So the issues are just not institutional. It's just not one institution or even a national issue. At Caspia, we've carried out a survey and research with organisations in the USA, in India and the Middle East to identify issues around professional development and what would make effective professional development. And those same issues come back. It's too expensive. It's too difficult to access. And it's top-down approach. And there's all sorts of competing priorities and workloads that are just affecting people's motivation and really stopping that incentive for participants to really engage in meaningful professional development. And these same issues were vocalised by that group I was sitting with at the University of Leeds during that staff development session and reflected in that Caspia data. Often, these events are discrete, they're happening frequently, and they're not sustainable going forward because nothing is followed up. So we need to try and look at that, add a bit of control for the professionals involved in the professional development, and look at how we can scale that up and really show impact. Because at the end of the day, a lack of investment in professional development leads to lecturer attrition, which costs money and has a detrimental effect on the knowledge and skills of any institution. That's why we need to reframe professional development so that's effective, efficient and global. So what does great professional development look like? From the different research we've done, and obviously from the research papers that we've used to have a grounding in the research that we did against the actual action activities within the different institutions we worked with, we saw that good professional development, great professional development should have a needs analysis or at least a consultation with the staff so they feel that they're engaged with the process and that their needs are being met. There needs to be some sort of constructive alignment that links organisational strategy and individual appraisal objectives with training needs. It needs to be research-based, whatever content you're delivering out, to help those professionals be better in what they do. It needs to be time-sensitive to think about workloads, etc. There needs to be some sort of well-balanced media, whether you're delivering it face-to-face or online, like we're doing at the moment. Don't have it all video. It just doesn't work. Busy professionals want to skip the video and get to the content. It should engage reflective practice, and that then helps start to measure the impact moving forward as people start to reflect on what they've done and how that has engaged and changed their behaviour. And as an institution, we've got to be careful not to expect instant results, because behaviour takes time to change. So depending on the professional development, there could be different states of where this impact can be picked up. So one particular university, Curtin University in Malaysia, developed an institutional program, looking at institutional policies and strategy, and created a framework in which to hang the professional development on. So all new continuing academics are expected to participate in monthly seminars, either in the physical space or online, and share research experience with each other. And the university also added some specialist workshops in there for the activities that need to be done, the competency requirements. So some of those health and safety, etc. sessions, there were special sessions put on those, but these were all built around the framework, and that framework really helped staff feel that they were progressing in their professional development. They could self-assess where they were, and they could then reflect on their progress throughout. University of Turku in Finland, they looked at professional development from an online perspective because they were involved in a partnership with a number of different universities, and to make their professional development sustainable over time, but also engage all of these different universities and different professionals and staff across the academic arenas, they needed to have an online environment. So they created a series of short online courses using mixed media and collaborative discussions. And that helped break down the barriers of professional development in the universities. And these short online courses were developed directly from competency requirements and also common objectives amongst the appraisals and staff feedback that they were getting across the different university partners. So these online courses helped scale up the professional development and also encourage self-study. So the staff felt they had some self-efficacy. The courses were praised on their mixed use of media and collaborative discussions, so that collaboration was there, and also a nice blend of text, image and video-based material. The University of Leeds Language Centre also went through a development set up for their particular professionals within their department. The way they did it was to create a community of practice. So they got some experts together to support each other to be able to develop. And this was driven by the fact that they had a situation with COVID. The University of Leeds has over 10,000 overseas students coming to the university every year. And part of those overseas students' remit before they arrive on campus is they take part in a summer school to ensure that their English skills were at a level that would make them successful on whichever undergraduate or postgraduate program that they took part in. But of course, those summer schools couldn't happen this year. So there was a little bit of panic on of how to change language lessons into online to ensure that these students had access, so when travel restrictions were lifted, they could then attend the university and have success. So University of Leeds decided to set up a community of practice in which the University Language Centre worked closely with the engineering experts and professors, because they'd already used online learning in China to deliver some of the modules and content at the Chinese school that's been set up by the University of Leeds, so their experience of using MS Teams. And the community of practice itself was based within MS Teams, so the staff got used to using the tool and techniques of online community support as well as online delivery. So eventually a series of 4 community discussions was set up with the Digital Education Service at Leeds facilitating it to support the technology, and also the Language Centre managers and staff and the School of Engineering lecturers who acted as mentors. And then they were able to then create a successful summer school with 800 students and obviously upskill staff in this online learning. So there's 3 case studies that we've looked at, looking at professional development from different aspects. You've got a community of practice from the University of Leeds. You've got online short courses from a university in Finland. And then we've got the development of a framework from the university within Malaysia. So in conclusion, you need to think about professional development. To make it effective, there needs to be an effective driver and trying to make that as close to the professional as possible, not necessarily a top-down approach. Providing some scaffolding and framework will help self-assessment, self-progress and empowerment. And professional development needs to be reflective and encourage that empowerment and engage community support through those communities of practice. I'm going to ask these questions towards the end, but there's something to think about then. How do you feel about HE professional development? Do you need to know more? Do you need support with analysis? Do you need to work on developing a framework, online professional development, or measuring impact? And how confident are you supporting staff with that professional development? Because what we've done at Caspia is develop something called KEDX. KEDX is our platform for professional development. And what we've done is taken that good practice from those different institutions and what we've learned from our international partners and from the research that we've done to create a platform that enhances online development and support from our fellow colleagues. It's HE professionals creating content and professional development for other HE professionals. And alongside that is a community where we can then discuss and share our experiences. And all the courses on the KEDX platform are based on expertise and research and offer a network and dialogue experience and a global enterprise. So this is professional development without borders. Because on KEDX, we want to encourage local and global networking by breaking down those silos, breaking down departments, disciplines and institutions through professional development, and also breaking down the boundaries of countries. You can learn from everyone around the world. Because after all, we're often tasked with making our students into global citizens. So why shouldn't professional development be global? At the moment, KEDx has over 4,000 community members who are all HE professionals from around the world, and we've got over 100 professional development courses for HE staff and over 50 expert instructors continuing developing courses to ensure that us HE professionals get the best opportunity possible.
5 minutes reminder.
No worries. I was actually going to go to thank you and see if you've got any questions. But I was going to jump back to the slide where I asked the polling question about how people feel about HE professional development. Because there's a number of ways of doing this. We need to work as a global community to support each other in professional development. Conferences like this are fantastic, and having it online encourages access and enables people like myself from other countries, from the UK, to join in. And should that be enhanced and taken on further? But then also, what are the boundaries that are remaining to make sure that we have the most effective, affordable and engaging professional development we can? And that's what we've looked at KEDx, is making sure that, unlike systems like LinkedIn and other major professional development platforms that are often prohibitively expensive, we want everybody in the globe to have a chance to be able to access professional development. So it's set at a price that everyone can afford in any country. So have a think about it and start thinking about the questions you can add into the chat. Do you think you need to know more about professional development that is efficient, affordable and global? Do you need to support with needs analysis? Do you need to know more about developing a framework, or have you got one that works really well? And do you need support developing online professional development? And how do you measure the impact? What thoughts do you have on that? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Richard Nelson. Any questions, please? Okay. One question. We don't often get international opportunity for PD unless they are at conferences. What other alternatives are there?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because you can see it happening more effectively now, I think, because of the COVID pandemic, that a lot of institutions are creating online conferences, which gives us access to the conferences we perhaps would not get before. And they're also initially offering them relatively low cost or free, because then that engages people and brings people into maybe a new style of delivery. The alternatives you want to think about are the opportunities via MOOCs, which has been mentioned earlier. But my concern there is that the engagement could be quite low, because you don't necessarily have the community offering, but there are some good MOOCs out there where they engage with you and you can talk to the expert. Or the alternatives are setting up communities of practice within groups of colleges, universities and other school systems to share, and they will have network events where they can get into and share across the world. But like I said, KEDx is quite unique in that it is a hub for these activities. It's a place where we have a global community of HE experts and fellow professionals and peers talking and discussing about many different topics, and also sharing their advice via online courses, webinars and different activities.
Okay, we have one question here. How can we enhance the participation in professional development courses for our students?
Okay, with professional development for students in particular, that to me feels like the scaffolding and framework approach has been very effective. From the case studies we've followed, how does professional development for yourself as a professional fit into a grander scheme? So how does it fit within a professional framework of some sort, or through some standards? And then if you get the students involved in that and create transparent frameworks for them to follow and show and demonstrate what value they will get out of professional development, they will often buy into it more. But you've got to think about what we talked about earlier about the empowerment and that self-efficacy. They've got to feel a bit of control. So you need to give them an idea of choice, but also a value in what they're doing. That's why frameworks and scaffolding really help. So there's lots of different national frameworks, but there's no reason why you couldn't create your own within your own department and institution, or talk to an organisation like KEDX, and we can develop frameworks for your staff and for students to engage in lots of different avenues of professional development.
Okay, great. Thank you, Doctor. Any more questions? We have 5 more minutes. Dr. Richard, if you'd like to elaborate on the first slide about the questions that you have introduced.
Was that the issues?
Yeah.
So this.
Yes.
Yeah. So this bit here was part of the skills and issues questionnaires and interviews that we conducted with institutions from around the world, with individual lecturers and with departments and faculties and organisations themselves, thinking about what HE professional development is, and the issues and boundaries and blocks that were happening. So what came out were these key highlights. We often found that professional development was expensive, difficult to access, had issues with workloads, wasn't sustainable, and one size fits all. So that's why we engaged with different institutions to then tackle these particular problems.
Okay, Dr. Richard, if I may interrupt, we have a question. I have attended dozens of webinars and conferences, but still the problem is that it is challenging to adapt the new ideas into my context. Any advice?
Yes, that's the problem with that one-size-fits-all and the top-down approach. So ideally, before you got involved in the conferences and networking events, there'd be some sort of contact from the organisations to be able to actually identify your individual needs. But that's very difficult on scale and very difficult for the organisers themselves to do. And even within an institution, like I explained with my own staff development, was that my needs weren't being met because it was just a blanket professional development. So we can't do that often. What you need to do, or what organisations should do, is that needs analysis, and that's what we do with KEDX. Is we talk directly with institutions and individuals about what is their actual needs for professional development, and you'll be able to pick your own platform and your own path. To do that, though, yourself, is really, you need to think about picking up the key message that's coming through. So think about what the key fundamental message is from the conference, or in particular the sessions that you go to, and question how that fits within context, and try and see if you can do that by talking to your own community and sharing that expertise with your colleagues, your friends, and any social groups you have. So then that conversation starts driving the change in narrative, so it changes to your context, and that can be quite powerful, because then you might get the aha moment, where then you see how I can do that within the real world. Also, don't forget to use the question and answering session like we're doing now, and talk to the people in the conference. Don't be that lurker and that quiet student in the background. Try and challenge people at every conference. That's great, but how would that work in my context? I have these type of learners, because they probably got that experience, or they talk to you afterwards, and you can have that discussion offline. So make use of those contacts you're making, those networks. And don't forget to email me at rnelson@caspia.com if you want to discuss that further.
One last question is, can we see KEDX, please?
We can. If you give me 2 seconds, I'll try and stop sharing the screen.
All right.
What can you see on the screen right now? Still the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
A second.
We have 2 minutes. Okay.
Can you see the KEDX platform?
Yes, thank you.
So the KEDX platform, as I said earlier, has been developed by fellow HE professionals, really. We're just the host, we're the creator, the curator of all that information. So there's 2 main streams to it. There is a community group. So at the top, you've got a menu where it says activities and groups. I'll just click on the activity quickly. I think I've logged in. Yeah. So you see a sort of social media background that you see commonly amongst everywhere else, and that's where you can communicate and discuss to colleagues and friends and update your own information and share your own experiences. There's also the groups element. Every course and every interest group has a special group on the KEDX platform. So you can go in and explore further and talk to people with shared interests. So there's one about online learning. There's my own group on instructional design there, and some institutions have got their own groups there. So that is the community aspect. And then the other side of it is the courses themselves. So come on, internet, you can do it. There we go. So at the moment, I've got access to these courses, and these courses are created by experts from around the world. We've got Robert Whelan, Dr. Robert Whelan, or Professor Robert Whelan from Australia. We've got Dr. Linda Levidia from USA. We've got Dr. Andrew from UK, etc., etc. Lots of different courses on practical and strategic and policy activities. But these experts are just explaining about their professional development. And you can look at this further. There's video elements in there, there's activities, and there's downloadable resources. But the KEDX platform is accessible for everybody. And the idea was to try and break down that barrier of boundaries between your own institution, your own departments, national institutions, and the global boundaries. Because we've all got a shared expertise and interest in higher education, and we want to share that and make sure we curate that as a place for good professional development.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Richard Nilsson, for a wonderful presentation and for all the interesting questions and feedback. We'd like to invite the audience to provide their feedback in the link that has been provided in the chat by our host. Also, I would like to remind you to join us in the virtual room 6 from 2 p.m. to 3:20 p.m. for our distinguished keynote speakers that will bring the forum to a close. Thank you all very much.